It's a pleasure to join you today to this very timely event hosted by the European Policy Center. And I think I should start by expressing my gratitude to the organizers, but also to the expertise which they are providing us with for our deliberation when we are discussing economic security. I mean, the papers from Fabian Zulek, but also from Georg or my former colleague from different European institutions, Pavel Šieboda, always very much welcome. We learn from them and we very much appreciate them. I think that you are for a treat because there is very impressive lineup of speakers. I'm particularly glad that we will have our Secretary of Trade of UK, Jonathan Reynolds, with us. As I was teasing him this morning, my impression is that he's everywhere. The problem is that I'm usually with him, so you can see that really, I mean, the trade ministers, trade commissioners these days are very busy people with really clear weight and political responsibility on our shoulders. So I'm sure that be it from two of us or from our Japanese colleagues whom I visited recently, Kyuchi, Minoru, I think you will learn a lot because if somebody can serve us as an example how to stockpile critical raw materials, how to plan for the future, how to look strategically for the industrial and governmental cooperation in the field of economic security. It's clearly Japan, and therefore we want to be inspired by many of the measures they have undertaken over the couple of last years. So having said all that, you are clearly here for the rich and insightful experience, and I believe that conversation like this help us to see current issues through fresh perspective and shape effective policy responses. And I have no doubt that today will be no different, especially given the extraordinary context we face in the trade and economic securities, topics I'm here to address and which you already touched upon by the previous speakers. I think we would all agree that we are witnessing a profound paradigm shift in global trade and in how we define economic strength and security. I would say that the romantic, good old days of trade, when environment was simpler, relationships less complex, and balances more predictable, are firmly behind us. But that does not mean that we should give up on our values, our goals, and our determination. On the contrary, we need trade. Trade is not just a political slogan. It's an economic imperative. If you look at any statistics of the World Bank, they would clearly highlight that the estimate is that approximately 1 billion people have been lifted out of extreme poverty over the last 3 decades. Many countries, once classified as least developed, are now emerging players. They are industrializing, they are innovating, and steadily joining the global middle class. This has not been achieved through protectionism. Trade is the progress, and I would say trade is peace in motion. Moreover, every product we use tells a story of global interdependence. Your car may be designed in Germany, manufactured in Slovakia, equipped with semiconductors from Taiwan, steel from US, and if electric, lithium sourced from Chile or batteries from China. A single smartphone also relies on components sourced worldwide, involving dozens of countries, for example, processor from US, displays from Japan, batteries from South Korea, or camera components from Germany. And this is the reality of today's supply chain. They're complex, but they are collaborative, and they are also interdependent. Thanks to these global interconnections, we better understand each other and the challenges we face. From the growing impacts of climate change, we see on our screens of our TV sets almost every evening, every morning, news on wildfires or floods, but also we see the impact the AI revolution will have on job markets everywhere in the world. And you know that the European Union has always stood for free and fair trade. Robert Schuman emphasized this when he said, Europe cannot be made without making economic progress. And economic progress depends on free trade and cooperation. End of quote. So we negotiate, we do not isolate, and we do not leave the table. This is reflected in our network of trade agreements, the largest of any trading partner worldwide. 44 deals with 76 countries covering nearly half of our global trade. And there is nothing abstract about it. These agreements remove barriers, they attract investments and open new markets, benefiting everyone involved. For us, trade agreements are more than transactions. They are upgrades that empower our partners, helping them grow with us, and creating a cycle of shared prosperity. And I'm confident in saying that every free trade agreement we have negotiated has boosted growth, jobs, and markets, and on both sides. Therefore, in the current geopolitical context, we are doubling down on a rules-based approach to trade, fast-tracking bilateral free trade agreement talks already underway, and initiating numerous new ones. Our focus is on reaching commercially meaningful, mutually beneficial deals tailored to each other. And given the paradigm shift in the global trade landscape, we are going beyond traditional free trade agreements to include digital agreements, sustainable investment facilitation, and clean trade and investment partnerships, among others. And I value every discussion with the business leaders, so many of them present here this morning. So we spare no time and effort in opening new markets, granting them new market access, while strengthening the EU's position in the global trade and the rules-based system for a long haul. The message from us is clear. The EU is open for business, EU is reliable and committed to fairness and mutual gain. At the same time, we are making Europe a more attractive place to invest by boosting competitiveness and simplifying both our laws and internal processes. For too long, the EU has outsourced production in critical sectors. We built over-dependencies where we should have built resilience. We have learned sometimes the hard way that such over-dependence can be weaponized. That is why I see our single market and our trade and investment partnerships as two sides of the same coin. But let's be clear. Free trade does not mean naive trade. The global system has been disrupted by non-market practices, fueling industrial overcapacity, by stalled multilateral rulemaking, and even by weaponization of the supply chains. To be honest, we have been playing catch-up. The pace of geopolitical and economic shifts demand that we adapt and that we do that fast. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to improve the system, not to bend it to the point of breaking, and certainly not to abandon it. But maintaining the status quo is non-starter. Just in the past 2 days, during the OECD Trade Ministerial, the message was clear and unequivocal. Deep reform of the World Trade Organization is long overdue and urgently needed to match today's realities. We need fresh perspectives on multiple fronts, and that includes China, our second largest trading partner in goods, with whom the EU is celebrating the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations this year. As a major global player, China has a responsibility to match its support for multilateralism with full respect for the rules meant to ensure fairness and equity. Hence, our calls on China to address systemic issues affecting Europe and other partners such as overcapacity, subsidies, market access barriers, critical mineral export restrictions, investment conditions, and trade diversions. The EU and China share strong mutual interest in tackling both bilateral and global challenges. But it is equally important to address our differences, as the quality of our cooperation impacts not only our industries and our people, but also the entire global economy. We value the EU-China economic and trade relationship. However, China's impressive rise must not come at the expense of the European economy. We are committed to rebalancing this relationship and establishing a level playing field in trade and investment with symmetrical market opening. And earlier this week, during the OECD Ministerial Council, I held yet another focused, in-depth discussion with my counterpart, with Minister Wang Wentao, on a wide range of urgent issues vital to European industry, as I have consistently done since the beginning of my mandate. We are working hard to drive progress ahead of the Leaders' Summit in July, which I trust will create fresh momentum to reshape our economic and trade relations. Ladies and gentlemen, for decades, the United States, our largest trading partner, our closest ally, led by example on rules-based trade. As President Ronald Reagan once said, we should be leading the world in opening markets, not retreating behind walls, end of quote. We are currently engaged in complex negotiations with the United States. So please understand that I cannot go into too much detail today. However, it is important to emphasize that the EU-US relations are unparalleled and must be approached with mutual respect and strategic vision. While we share common goals, especially around reindustrialization and leadership in future-oriented sectors, we have chosen different paths. The US seems to favor tariffs and reshoring. The EU sees value in diversification via reliable partnerships around the globe. From day one, the Commission has been in constant dialogue with the US, and I've spoken numerous times with my counterparts, Secretary Howard Lutnick and Ambassador Jamieson Greer. Just yesterday, I had a productive meeting with the US trade representative in Paris, while our experts are spending this week in Washington. So we are fully investing our time and effort at all levels. And I'm glad to say that our engagement has been very constructive and that we are moving in the right direction, and I'm committed to sustaining this positive momentum moving forward. We face many shared challenges, and we are better off tackling them together. Ladies and gentlemen, and this brings me to the headline of today's discussion, to the economic security. And I have to underscore that this is no longer an abstract concept, but a pressing priority that demands immediate action. Today's event is clear proof of this urgency, as is the EU's rapid progress. Our objective is straightforward: to identify real high-risk vulnerabilities across critical areas and act swiftly to address them, starting with an assessment of the tools at our disposal. When it comes to the new technology, for instance, we are focused on 4 sectors that will shape the future for all our economy. I'm talking about advanced semiconductors, artificial intelligence, quantum technologies, and biotech. We are moving fast and expect the first set of results in the coming weeks. In parallel, we are preparing to launch assessments on 6 additional emerging technologies, accelerating our pace to stay ahead of evolving threats. But assessments are, of course, only the starting point. Mitigation is front and center here. This means deploying and, where needed, reinforcing our toolbox, from foreign direct investment screening to export controls, monitoring of outbound investments, the foreign subsidies regulation, and the anti-coercion instrument. This work demands close coordination with our member states and the industry partners. And because economic security does not end at our borders, we are deepening cooperation with like-minded partners, including Japan, Canada, Australia, and within the G7, for instance, to establish standards for resilient supply chains to support long-term economic security. It is essential that we build on our many strengths, supporting companies that are indispensable to global value chains and doubling down on our R&D capabilities must remain our top priorities. I'm convinced that all this will keep us one step ahead, focused, aligned, and responsive. And to protect our single market, we must modernize how we manage trade at our borders. That is where the bold reform of our customs union comes in, with the creation of the EU Customs Authority and Customs Data Hub. These will be game changers, offering immediate and tangible benefits, simple processes, better data, digitalization, stronger protection for both Europeans and European businesses. So economic security is no longer an optional extra. It is a mission critical, and Europe is stepping up. In conclusion, I will borrow the words of Winston Churchill, who once said, "To each, there comes in a lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do a very special thing, unique to them and fit for their talents." End of quote. I can tell you that we feel the tap. And now it's the moment for all of us. That's a moment for Europe. So let's build a system that is open, which is reliable, and resilient. Let's break down silos. Let's avoid putting up walls, which resolutely championing, where we need to resolutely championing free and fair trade. And putting on my institutional hat, let's do it in a united way as one strong Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.